Welcome, everyone, to the Scoreboard. Happy Thursday to you. And what a wonderful Thursday it is. We have the privilege and the honor of talking about sports here on the Scoreboard. It is a wonderful day. A disclaimer, as we do on most of these episodes now, today's episode was recorded earlier in the day. I am not live in studio, but it is Thursday, January 23rd. It's the afternoon. Hopefully nothing crazy happens in between now and the airing of this episode, but like I always say, you really never know. Something huge could happen, but we might have to save it for tomorrow. I got a lot of things to discuss with you guys today. We're going to go over some basketball. Yes, we have high school basketball. We're going to do the men's varsity side of things today. Some games that happened over the past few days that we want to make sure that we get out there, discuss, talk about records and where teams lie in terms of conference standings and possibility of making the playoffs as we are getting down to the end of the basketball season. We're also going to discuss the NBA a little bit. There's some news regarding the Miami Heat and their star guard, Jimmy Butler. He's been in the news over the past couple of weeks. He's in the news again. We're going to discuss what's going on with Jimmy Butler as the Miami Heat have once again suspended their star. We're also going to talk about the NFL today. Yes, the NFL, I know, I get it. Maybe it's not the sexiest thing to do on a Thursday before a conference championship weekend, but there are some interesting things that were released today, including all of the finalists for the MVP, Players of the Year, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, all of those fun things. We will go over the nominees, and I will give you my predictions for who is winning these awards. Should be an interesting round of MVP votes, Comeback Player of the Year, Coach of the Year. I don't know who's going to win some of these. It's really a toss-up. Like, Coach of the Year, man, do you go with Kevin O'Connell in the year that he had with Minnesota or Dan Quinn and the turnaround that he had with Washington? I don't know. I think those are really the two options in my opinion, but we'll see. We'll go over all of them a little bit later on in the show. We're also going to talk about some other things that have happened around the sports world recently. We have a little bit of news regarding the Rams and the possibility of their quarterback, Matt Stafford, maybe changing some things in his life, possibly. We'll discuss a little later on today. We're also going to get into the NHL a little bit more today. The Carolina Hurricanes are in action later on tonight. And when you look at the standings and you look at the Hurricanes and what they've done recently, they're on a nice 3-game winning streak, 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. So they are definitely starting to put some games together that are really good. They've now moved up to second in the Metropolitan, still 8 points behind the Washington Capitals, who lead the Metropolitan Division. You know, at the beginning of the year, if you would have told me that come late January, the Washington Capitals are leading the Metropolitan Division, the New York Rangers are out of the playoffs, and the Pittsburgh Penguins have nowhere to go, I would have told you were crazy. I think the most believable thing on that would have been the quip about the Penguins. They still got Crosby. They still got Malkin. But that team is currently on the outside looking in, along with a lot of other teams that we expected to have better years this year. So we're going to talk a little bit about the NHL as well. But first, let's get into our conversation about local high school varsity men's basketball as we start with Statesville High School. Statesville's overall record now is 10-6. They are on a tear as of late, winning 5 consecutive games. On Tuesday, they were in action at home against Hickory High School, and they got the win, no question, really, 71-62. A very good game for Statesville High School. Leading scorer for Statesville in this game, Manuel Gladden, the sophomore for Statesville, and he was followed with 21 points. He was followed by the senior leader on the team, Caleb Tillman, with 18 points as Statesville gets the victory against the Red Tornadoes. Final score, like I said, 71-62. That has improved Statesville's record in the conference to 6-1. They are now tied with East Lincoln atop the standings here. And not only that, we still have to see Statesville match up with East Lincoln one more time. Now, if you remember all the way back in early January, Statesville and East Lincoln played at Statesville High School, and East Lincoln, they kind of handled Statesville in this one. 99-74 was the final score in this game. And, you know, we had some, I had some questions at least if Statesville was going to be a serviceable team this year at that point in the season. They were under 500. They were 5-6 after that game with a 1-1 conference record. After that loss to East Lincoln, Statesville has not lost a game. They've also only really had one close game, and that was a 2-point victory on the road against West Iredell. So Statesville High School really starting to put it together here at the midpoint of the conference schedule. Next up for Statesville High School is going to be North Lincoln. It'll be a home game tipping off at 7:30. That game is tomorrow, Friday, 7:30 at home against North Lincoln. Another school in our area with a winning record is West Iredell. Now, the thing about West Iredell is they started the year 9-3. They looked great. They were 2-0 in the conference at that point. Since that last win that they got against Ford High School, though, 5 consecutive losses, a few of them nail-biters, but for the most part, West Iredell is on a little bit of a skid here. 2-5 in the conference now, which is third in the 3A Western Foothills. 5-game losing streak has dropped their overall record to 9-8. Most recently, they lost to North Iredell 76-72, so still a close game. But West Iredell is kind of falling off here a little bit as we get through the conference schedule. Now, they have a chance to turn things around tomorrow on the road against St. Stephen's High School. Tip-off of that game, 7:45. Hopefully, West Iredell can get a win under their belt again here and start turning their season around. We're going to head to our first commercial break of the day. We got plenty more high school sports to talk about. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We're back after this. And welcome back. You're listening to the Scoreboard. No phone calls today. It has been today's episode has been recorded at an earlier time. We are not live in studio, but it is Thursday, so all the information as of today is current and up to date. I found this interesting, kind of funny actually. Just a little quip by Ichiro Suzuki. When he was speaking with reporters on Thursday about the Hall of Fame vote, Ichiro said via his interpreter that he wants to, quote, have a drink with the lone dissenting voter and have a good chat with them. One person did not vote for Ichiro Suzuki for the Hall of Fame. Why? Who? I want to know who. Tell me. Who's the guy that didn't vote for Ichiro? Why wouldn't you vote for Ichiro? And I understand maybe some people are more into analytics than others. I know Ichiro, his OPS numbers were not all that impressive, but his batting average, his steals, his consistency, all of that was pretty impressive in my opinion. The number of hits he got in his career after starting his career well into his 20s. I mean, you got to take that all into consideration. I would have thought he's a first ballot unanimous Hall of Famer. Now, he is first ballot, just not unanimous. And maybe we'll get into the Hall of Fame vote a little more today. Like, I don't get it. Let's do it now before we get back into the high school discussion, because I just saw it come across the information about Ichiro wanting to have a cup of coffee, basically, with whoever didn't vote for him. I don't understand how players over the course of the years that they're eligible for the Hall of Fame gain more voters. Like, Billy Wagner was in his final year of eligibility. What changed? What changed to where the first 9 years he wasn't a Hall of Famer, but now in the final year of his eligibility, he is? I mean, I'm just a little confused. Did he play more baseball? Did I miss that? In between the first year of eligibility and now, did Billy Wagner play more baseball? I don't think he did. Maybe I got to do better research. I just don't understand it. Like, Carlos Beltran didn't make the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. What's going to change to where he gets in on the second or the third? I don't know. And how can you justify not voting for Ichiro? I mean, some of the baseball writers are just the worst. They're the worst. How is it that the baseball writers are the ones voting for the Hall of Fame? They stink. They're terrible. Only one player was a unanimous 100% first ballot. Everybody voted for him. That was Mariano Rivera. And I'd argue he probably wasn't deserving of a 100% unanimous first ballot. Definitely first ballot, but I don't know about unanimous. Like, he got blips on his resume. Most notably, the only Game 7 that he ever pitched in the World Series. Only World Series Game 7 he ever pitched in, I should say. You know what happened with the Diamondbacks? I mean, I get it. He is a Hall of Famer, but that's a moment you look at and you go, ooh, kind of cost your team there, pal. I don't know. Give me a vote. That's all I got to say. Give me a vote. I'll vote for everyone. Everybody deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is supposed to be a celebration. Why are people gatekeeping great players? I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, let's get back into the high school discussion, because I'm going to just get upset about the Hall of Fame vote and what happened to Ichiro. It's not right. It really isn't. Ichiro is a unanimous. Everybody should have voted for Ichiro. Anyway, getting back into the high school scene here, we were just talking about West Iredell and the little bit of a slump that they've been in recently, losing 5 consecutive games, losing to North Iredell as well. North Iredell, by the way, is the next team we're going to talk about. They are only 5-12 this year, and their conference record is 2-5, but they were able to get a win against West Iredell on Tuesday, 76-72, to just kind of give them a feel-good win. I mean, I don't think North Iredell is going to be able to go on the kind of run that would put them in a playoff position. Who knows? Maybe their conference champion or conference tournament run is going to be absurd. And it's like nothing we've ever seen before. But I wouldn't expect to see North Iredell in the playoffs, but a very good feel-good win against a team that, well, they're fighting for the playoffs. They are in position to make a run and have a good seed for the conference tournament, do well in that, and maybe get a good bid into the playoffs coming at the end of February. But North Iredell was able to spoil that with only a few games remaining in the season. Just a handful, I believe 7, 8 for the most part for a lot of these schools. That's it. Season's coming to an end. The next game for North Iredell is going to be tomorrow at home against Ford High School. 7:30 is the tip-off of that game. We got South Iredell as well, who, man, they need to win a conference game. They are on a struggle here recently. They beat West Iredell 79-77. And that's the thing. West Iredell has some bad losses on the schedule this year. South Iredell is 4-13. They beat West Iredell 79-77. And then since then, they've played a lot of conference ball games, but they are on a 6-game losing streak right now. It's just not been the best run for South Iredell High School. And kind of like North Iredell, I don't know if they're going to be able to turn it around in time. They're currently 0-5 in the conference, and not winning any conference games is not what you want to be doing at this time of the year. But they have a chance to turn it around. You can always go on a run at the end of the season and see what happens. Right now, or tomorrow, I should say, South Iredell takes on West Cabarrus. It'll be a home game, 7:30, the tip-off of that one. And getting into a couple of schools closer to Lake Norman that have had absolutely incredible runs as of late. Lake Norman High School and Mooresville High School. Now, remember, on Tuesday, I told you guys that they were going to play each other coming up on Wednesday. Well, that game went final last night, and it was Lake Norman coming up victorious in that one, improving their record to 17-1, 6-0 in the conference, as Lake Norman was able to beat Mooresville High School 99-71. That was a dominant win by Lake Norman. They are having a great year. I think that's the word we should use for it. Great year. 17-1. They're the 5th ranked school in the state of North Carolina. They're the 38th ranked school in the country. Yeah. This Lake Norman team, keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on them come 4A playoff time. Now, Lake Norman is on a little bit of a break here until they play A.L. Brown next week on the 28th. It'll be a home game for Lake Norman. 7:30 is going to be the tip-off on that one. And for Mooresville High School, they're in action tomorrow on the road against Cox Mill High School. Another 7:30 tip-off. Now, Mooresville is 15-3 on the year. 5-1 within their conference, that one conference loss coming to Lake Norman on Wednesday. Mooresville has not lost a game at home. They have also not lost a game at a neutral site. Their only 3 losses this year have come on the road, where they are 6-3 on the road. Pretty good split there for Mooresville. That's what you want to see. Doing good at home, good in the neutral games, and still, even though they've lost a couple on the road, they have a winning record on the road. That's going to conclude the local high school portion of the show today. It went a little long. I had to throw in that information about Major League Baseball and the Hall of Fame vote and all the things going on. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Billy Wagner playing more baseball. I think Torrey Hunter was on there too. Torrey Hunter didn't get in. Andrew Jones. What? How's Andrew Jones not in there? He should be a Hall of Famer in my opinion. Anyway, hopefully we see Andrew Jones in the Hall of Fame. He deserves it. Career batting average of .303. I mean, what more do you want, right? Andrew Jones had a very good career. I don't know what is going to change that gets him into the Hall of Fame, but I think he deserves to be in there. The center fielder, longtime center fielder for the Braves. Anyway, we're going to go to our next commercial break. I'm distracted by this Hall of Fame stuff. When we come back, I want to talk about the NFL honors, the nominees, and the finalists. Don't go anywhere. We're back after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Scoreboard. We are halfway through the program. here on this Thursday. Having a good day, talking about things in the world of sports with you guys. We finally finished up our local high school information. Definitely something that if you missed it, you're going to want to go back and listen to it, because there are some really good teams in our area, some nationally really good teams in our area as well. But now we're going to move on. I'm not going to talk about the Hall of Fame anymore, I promise. We're going to move on. Other things to discuss. The NFL honors. The finalists have been announced for MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Assistant of the Year, all of that stuff. Let's go through it. The finalist for the AP Most Valuable Player Award: Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, Saquon Barkley, the Philadelphia Eagles, Joe Burrow, the Cincinnati Bengals, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions, and Lamar Jackson with the Baltimore Ravens. I'll tell you what, if the Bengals would have made the playoffs, I think Joe Burrow would be getting a lot more love for MVP. He had the best year out of the quarterbacks. In my opinion, it was Joe Burrow who was the best quarterback this year. Now, is he going to win the MVP because of it? No, probably not. I would like to see him, because he is nominated, win either the Offensive Player of the Year award or the Comeback Player of the Year award. If you remember way back when, I said Joe Burrow's probably going to win the Comeback Player of the Year. I'd like that to come true, just because. But I do believe the most valuable player this year is going to be Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills. That is where my vote would go. Now, I don't have a vote. They don't care what I think. But that's where my vote would go. If I did have a vote, I'd say Josh Allen is your MVP. Defensive Player of the Year award: Zach Bond with the Philadelphia Eagles, Myles Garrett with the Cleveland Browns, Trey Hendrickson with the Cincinnati Bengals, Patrick Surtain II with the Denver Broncos, and TJ Watt with the Steelers. I think it's going to be TJ Watt with all the sacks that he had, amount of forced fumbles that he had, and the general way that the season played out for the Steelers. I think TJ Watt is probably going to be your AP Defensive Player of the Year. That's where my vote would go. So I'm going to say Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt. The AP Offensive Player of the Year award. What's the difference between the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year? The award never goes to defensive players. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It's mostly a quarterback award now. Anyway, your Offensive Player of the Year finalists: Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Derrick Henry, and Lamar Jackson. How is it that Josh Allen is nominated for the Most Valuable Player of the Year, but he's not nominated for the Offensive Player of the Year? Does he not play offense? Last I checked, he's a quarterback, and he plays offense. I don't get it. On that list, because they usually go different between the Offensive Player of the Year and the MVPs, I think it's going to be Joe Burrow. I do. I mean, you look at Joe Burrow's stats this year and the season that he had. I understand that his defense really didn't help him out throughout the year, but he had a great year. All 17 games he started, threw for almost 5,000 yards, 4,918 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He led the league. I would say Offensive Player of the Year is going to be Joe Burrow. The Offensive Rookie of the Year: Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, Bo Nix, and Brian Thompson Jr. Bowers with the Raiders, Daniels with the Commanders, Malik Neighbors with the New York Giants, Bo Nix, the Denver Broncos quarterback, and Brian Thompson Jr., the Jaguars wide receiver. It's a two-horse race in this one, in my opinion, between Brock Bowers and Jaden Daniels, but I just can't see them giving the award to a tight end. So I think the offensive rookie of the year this year is going to go to Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. Defensive rookie of the year, Cooper DeJean, Braden Fisk, Quinyon Mitchell, Chop Robinson, and Jared Verse with the Rams. The Eagles, surprisingly, having 2 cornerbacks nominated for Defensive Rookie of the Year. You have a good draft after losing a few players, and hey, guess what? You find yourself in the NFC Championship game. I'm going to give this one to Quinyon Mitchell. I think he had a pretty good year for the Eagles. Cooper DeJean also did have a really good year, but I'm going to give it to Quinyon Mitchell. That's just what, I mean, some of these, it's like a toss-up. Others aren't, but this one I'd say is a toss-up. Comeback Player of the Year. Joe Burrow, Sam Darnold. I don't know what he came back from. J.K. Dobbins, Christian Gonzalez, and Damar Hamlin. Don't know why Damar Hamlin is nominated again. He didn't win it last year, which, I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. Last year, Joe Flacco won the Comeback Player of the Year award. He came back from being on the couch and not playing. Damar Hamlin died on the football field, came back to life, and did not win Comeback Player of the Year last year. Is he going to win it this year? Like, just because, hey, sorry, we messed up, Damar. We're going to give it to you this year. Joe Burrow had a better year. Joe Burrow had the best year, I should say, out of all of the comeback players. Sam Darnold, what did he come back from? I don't know. He was benched. He was bouncing around the league. He was playing for the Panthers. I don't know what he came back from. I'm going to give it to Joe Burrow, but I wouldn't be surprised if Damar Hamlin rightfully wins a Comeback Player of the Year award that he should have gotten last year. That's one of the worst flubs in voting of all time. Last 2, Coach of the Year and Assistant of the Year. Let's start with the Coach of the Year. Dan Campbell of the Lions, Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings, Sean Payton with the Broncos, Dan Quinn with the Commanders, and Andy Reid with the Chiefs. I don't think it'll be Andy Reid. I don't think it'll be Dan Campbell. I don't think it'll be Sean Payton. Kevin O'Connell, you can make a really good case for him, but I think the Coach of the Year this year is going to be Dan Quinn, taking a 4-win Commanders team to the playoffs and now to the NFC Championship game. And finally, the AP Assistant Coach of the Year, Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings, Aaron Glenn, the DC for the Detroit Lions, and Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. I got to give this one to Brian Flores, in my opinion. Joe Brady also kind of turned around the Bills offense this year, but I think Brian Flores deserves it more. That defense was great all year. All year. I'm going to give it to Brian Flores. Thursday, February 2nd or February 6th, the NFL Honors Red Carpet Show presented by Invisalign will begin at 8 p.m. The honors will be hosted by Snoop Dogg. How about that? Final segment of the Scoreboard coming up. We're back after this. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the final segment here on the Scoreboard on this Thursday. One more reminder for you, today's episode was recorded earlier in the day, but it is currently Thursday. So all of the information is up to date. It is new information for you. So don't worry about hearing any reruns. This is not a rerun. It is current. We just got done talking about the NFL Honors, the final nominees for Player of the Year, MVP, Rookies of the Year, Coaches of the Year, all those good things. And also during NFL Honors, we will find out the winner of the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. That's one where every team has a nominee, and one person will take home that honor. We're going to move on now from football and get into a little bit of basketball news. The Miami Heat have been in the news lately. They suspended Jimmy Butler a couple of weeks ago for 7 games for, quote, multiple instances of conduct detrimental to the team. Butler returned to the team on Friday, and then on Wednesday night, the Miami Heat suspend their star guard again for 2 games. We have suspended Jimmy Butler for 2 games for a continued pattern of disregard of team rules, insubordinate conduct, and conduct detrimental to the team, including missing today's team flight to Milwaukee. That is the statement that was released by the team. Now, apparently, the Miami Heat are looking to trade Jimmy Butler. The trade deadline for the NBA is coming up. It's February 6th. But I don't know who's going to want this guy. Who wants Jimmy Butler? He's been suspended twice in the past 2 weeks by his team. Who wants him? I wouldn't. Sounds like a basket case to me. You don't want that. And I mean, you just got to look at how the Heat are doing this year. It's not that long ago that they were competing for championships. Well, now the Miami Heat are 21-21. They're 9th in the East. We don't really want to say anything bad about the Hornets right now. We know they've not had the best year. They are the 4th worst team in the NBA right now. Yeah, the 4th worst team in the NBA. We don't need to talk about how bad the Hornets have been. We know they're bad. We know they got some injuries now too. It's been a really bad year again for the Hornets. But for the Heat, this is not what we expected from them. They're supposed to be good. They're supposed to be competing for championships. Here they are, suspending their star player, possibly trading him, barely hanging on to the playoffs. Now, maybe not barely hanging on. They are 9th with 21 wins and 21 losses. The first team out of the play-in games are the Philadelphia 76ers, who are 15-27. So a 6-game cushion for the Miami Heat. But still, not what we expected from them this year. Not at all. I just find it funny that the Heat have once again suspended Jimmy Butler. Right now in the NBA, the Cleveland Cavaliers have a 5.5 game lead over the Boston Celtics. In the Western Conference, it's the Oklahoma City Thunder with a 7-game lead again over the Houston Rockets. The Lakers have been playing good basketball recently. They are 5th in the West. The Golden State Warriors are the first team out of the playoffs. They are only 1 game behind the Phoenix Suns. Here's interesting standings for you. Golden State Warriors, with all of their star power, are 21-22, 11th in the West. The Phoenix Suns, with all their star power, 22-21, 10th in the West. The Dallas Mavericks, they just went to an NBA Finals, 23-21, not having a great year. I would have thought those teams would have been a little bit better this year, but the younger teams, Oklahoma City, Houston, Memphis, they're better. The reign of the Golden State Warriors is no more. It really isn't. And I will continue to say that their championship a couple of years ago was more important to their dynasty than any of the ones that they had in the 2010s. Just because they had all that star power, and then you keep the same core, change some of the role players around, and you win it again. That's probably the most important championship in this run that the Golden State Warriors have had. Maybe it's coming to an end. Steph Curry's getting up there in age, and I'm not saying that he's bad. I'm just saying, how much longer does he have? We know he can still play at an elite level. Just look at what he did in the Olympics. Basically taking the ball for the final 2 minutes and saying, I got this, guys. I'm just going to shoot threes. They're all going to go in and we're going to win. That's the situation in the NBA right now. Hornets, 11 wins, 29 losses. Not good. just not good. Let's talk about a team in the area that is doing good. That would be the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes, over their last 10 games, have 6 wins, 3 losses, 1 overtime loss. They've won 3 consecutive games, and they are in action later on tonight as they take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Frederick Anderson is back as the goaltender. He will be the starter. Anderson returned on Monday as he stopped 22 of 25 against the Blackhawks as they held on for a win there. Projected lineup for the Hurricanes: Svechnikov, Aho, and Blake, Roslovic, Drury, and Natchez, Martinook, Stahl, and Jarvis, Robinson, Kotkaniemi, and Xhaka. The defensive pairs are Slavin, Burns, Orlov, Chatfield, Gostisbehere, Walker, and like I said, Anderson is in net with Kochekov as the backup. Little update for you here on some of the injuries. William Carrier, with his lower body injury, has no timetable for a return. Tyson Jost, with a lower body injury, is described as out long-term. And Jesper Fast, with a neck injury, is out for the remainder of the season. Jesper Fast, one of my favorite players in the NHL. That's a guy that you could put him anywhere in the lineup and he'll figure it out. It's really sad to see that he is not going to be in the lineup for the remainder of the season. Right now, the Hurricanes have 61 points. They have 29 wins, 16 losses, 3 overtime losses. Good enough for second in the Metropolitan. They're not one of the best teams in the NHL this year. The spotlight is now off of them. They are 6th in the NHL. Washington, Winnipeg are the class right now. And then it's really pretty grouped together all the way from the Golden Knights down to the LA Kings, excuse me. 3rd through 12th in the overall standings are separated by just 5 points. Quick update for you on my New York Rangers. They won again the other night. We talked about it yesterday. The New York Rangers are only 2 points out of the playoffs. We are so back. We are so back. I don't know if there's any Ranger fans in the area, but we are back. 23, 20, and 4, 50 points on the year, 6, 1, and 3 in their last 10 games. They're on, I believe, a 8-game point streak right now, the New York Rangers. That's what they need. Coming to the end of the program, let's go ahead and talk about some things that happened on this day in sports history. Let's go with 2022. It was on this day that the Bills and the Chiefs played in one of the greatest football games that I have ever seen, as the Chiefs beat the Bills in overtime 42-36. This is the game where Gabe Davis scored a playoff record 4 touchdowns. The Chiefs kicked the field goal after only having 11 seconds to get into field goal range, or was it 13? I think it was 13 seconds. They had 13 seconds to get into field goal range, and they did it to send the game into overtime. One of the greatest games in the history of the NFL. And let's see, what is the oldest thing we got here? 1879. The U.S. National Archery Association forms in Crawfordsville, Indiana. How about it? How about it? Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the program today. Love talking to each and every one of you. Tomorrow's Friday. We're going to spend a lot of time previewing the conference conference championship games in the NFL. Until then, have a great night, everyone.